Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Lana. That was a really good introduction. It's not much left to say. I mean, that really fits well into your discussion. What to do, vote or not to vote, avoid politics. Because I basically had the same thoughts for more than 30 years, right? I was also starting in my student times at the Liberale Hochschulgruppe at that time in Germany, and over the years tried to convince people about freedom, especially self-determination, voluntarism. But my assessment after 30 years is there is not enough demand for that, right? Because other more comfortable options, that somebody is taking care of you, that you are entitled to live on the expense of others, they are, let's put it frankly, they are more attractive, right? Because it's on the short term, it works, right? And that is what most people prefer. And that is my assessment. I do not say that you shouldn't engage yourself, and so far I would agree what Matt said, that you try on both ends of the spectrum to do something, but I think finally the solution is not so surprising. Just look what happens at the market. If you are not satisfied with, as an entrepreneur, if you are not satisfied with the products that are on the market, well, you do a new one and can make a lot of money with it. And that's what I want to talk to you about. And fortunately, just a couple of days ago, our first animation video was finished. It's still a draft. It will be changed slightly, but I thought it's a good opportunity to show it to you. I hope that this time the Joker is not, or Russian hackers are not destroying my video like it happened before. Yeah, let's have a look.
Government is not working. Let's do it better. We are free private cities. To us, you're not a taxpayer. You're a customer. We are negotiating with the nations of the world to select a virgin territory where we can provide excellent governance. For a yearly subscription fee, free private cities will protect your life, liberty, and property. Apart from that, you're free to do as you choose. With free private cities, you receive clear, simple rules and guaranteed security, so you can focus on what you do best. Residents of free private cities will enjoy far greater freedom at much lower cost than today's average citizen. Especially the poor will gain enormously thanks to the welcoming climate for employment and entrepreneurship. Let's create civil society the way it was meant to be. Find out more at freeprivatecities.com.
Yeah, when I moved to Monaco about 3 years ago, I discovered something that on first sight appeared strange to me. Despite being 30 years involved in politics and interested in politics, I had absolutely no wish to get involved into Monaco politics. Zero. I just want to be left alone. And then I asked the other people that were around. I mean, 80% of the people in Monaco, they're coming from 120 different nations, have no Monaco citizenship. They have absolutely zero participation rights. But that's not why we are there. We are there because we want to be left alone. And this is a really interesting social model in Monaco. It's basically that you have no income tax. There are other taxes like value-added tax and corporate taxes. It's not part of the European Union, but it has a tariffs union with France. And basically you do not, and it's one of the most secure places in the world. So you can send out your children at midnight to the street, and all that, and of course it's a nice climate, and you have glamour and all that. But when I realized that, I said to myself, basically we don't need politics. What do you want from a state or a society you're living in? You want security. You don't want to get robbed on the street. That's the most important thing. Some libertarians forget this sometimes, but without that, everything else doesn't matter. And that's why state exists at all. And so if we can say, okay, you got security, you got a legal framework, say British common law, or state of Delaware law, so that you know what is there, and some infrastructure. And you know that's not for free, you pay something, but you know what you have to pay. So I said, well, let's make a Monaco for everyone. Monaco is extremely expensive because it's only 2 square kilometers. It's the second smallest country in the world, but if it was bigger, the same model could apply, and even the average Joe could afford to live there. And I thought, we don't need a prince. A company could do that, right? So this was then the idea of free private cities. What is a free private city? It's a for-profit private enterprise and offers protection of life, liberty, and property in a defined territory. Better and cheaper with way more freedom than existing states. So the incentive of the operator would be profit, offering an attractive product at the right price. Otherwise, there's no demand. And this would, as I said, probably include some public goods such as clean environment, security, a legal framework, as well as some infrastructure and some social rules. But the main service, and it's a service, it's to ensure that the free order is not disturbed and that residents' life and property are secure. How does it work? What follows is my product idea. There might be different private cities concepts in the future. Let the market find out what works best. Well, every resident has the right to live an independent life without the interference of others. That is one of the main reasons why I left Germany. Because the politics told me what to say, what to eat, what to smoke, what opinion to have. And you all know that. It's getting worse every day. I can't buy plastic bags, vacuum cleaners, light bulbs, whatever. It's really getting more every year. And they even tell me, as a company founder, you have quotas for women in a supervisory board, and it's only a question of time when they will come up with other quotas. And I said, oh no, it's my company, and if you don't leave me create it like I do it, I leave. Secondly, the interaction between the residents happens on a voluntary basis. Don't hurt other people, don't take their stuff. That's it. It's participating and remaining in a free private city also. It's strictly voluntary. So that is securing that basically it's really a voluntary society. If you don't like the offer, don't go there. Third, the respective rights of others must be honored, even if one does not like their way of life or attitude. And that is one of the things that Ludwig von Mises once told, that as a free man, you have to cope with the fact that your neighbor is behaving differently than you and has other ideas and other feelings and other convictions without calling the police. And this is exactly what is happening here. Fourth, there's complete freedom of speech with one exception. If you are promoting expropriation or violence against others, you have to leave. The poor criticism of other people, ideologies, religions also has to be accepted. Feeling outraged justifies no limitation of free speech. Fifth, the operator of the free private city ensures a default regulatory framework and a basic infrastructure. This is to facilitate the peaceful coexistence and economic development of a large number of people. This includes the establishment of private police, firefighters, emergency rescue, a legal framework, and a court if residents cannot agree on arbitration. That is only default. I mean, you are free to agree on any other dispute resolution if you want. But if you can't agree, there should be something that applies to. If you don't have that, I doubt that people will come, because then transactions costs are too high. The hardcore anarcho-capitalists would say, well, everybody should choose his own right and have his own security. Well, I doubt that this is an attractive product because it takes, I know it from international law, there are rules how you deal, rules of conflict of interest, of collision, it's called collisional rules. If one law comes to another and it's extremely complex and you cannot foresee what the outcome will be, and so the market has switched to just we agree on one law and then let it happen, because otherwise it's extremely hard to foresee what the legal outcome will be if two parties have different laws and you have to rely on these rules of collision of laws. But let the market decide. I mean, if in the end there will somebody come up with an Uber-like app and you can find your security person through that, that's fine. But at the moment I would say it's probably, if you want to introduce something such new radical as this, then you probably have to say, okay, these are the rules if you don't agree on arbitration, and there's a security, and who is a criminal or becomes a criminal or whatever will be kicked out of the society. The framework, now this is a new thing, is laid down between the residents and the operating company in a contract, which holds all respective rights and obligations. This is a big difference because today you've been told that you are party to a fictional social contract. Unfortunately, one side is changing this contract all the time, mostly to your disadvantage, and you can't do anything about it. And that is exactly the opposite to what we have basically learned or what we are used to in our daily lives. If we want to make a journey on vacation, we ask what the price will be. If we buy a hamburger here, we know what the price will be, and the owner cannot just change the contract and say, by the way, now it costs double. And you would say, no, we have a contract. And that's what transferred here to this model. So the contract includes the consideration for every inhabitant that has to be paid for the services, and it cannot be changed one-sided. So this is your personal constitution, and that is much superior to a fictional social contract, in my mind. Seventh, all adult residents are responsible for the consequences of their actions, not society and not the operator. This is one of the other big difference to the societies we are living in. There is no human right to live at the expense of others. 8, conflicts of interest between residents or between residents and the operator are negotiated by independent courts or arbitral tribunals. Their decisions must be respected even by the operator. So this is something that is not so difficult because we know this from international trading law. If you and I have a problem and you say, okay, well, he has established a court, yeah, of course, we don't go to my courts. We would go to a third-party independent arbitration, and that can be as easy as you name one judge, I name one, and they agree on the chairman. But there are different possibilities how you deal with that. And of course, I mean, I could say, well, I have my private security. I just disregard the decision of the arbitration. But then you would probably do what I would do in Monaco. We just leave. We are highly mobile. And the product would not make profit. Maybe the city would go insolvent. So why should I do that, right? And that's exactly the reason why you've never heard about security brutality on a cruise ship. Because you're a customer. You're not a taxpayer. You're not a subject. I mean, a captain on a cruise ship, he's outside the jurisdiction on high seas. He can do whatever he wants with you. Let you flock because you weren't dressed well at the captain's dinner. That is not going to happen because you're a customer, you're a paying customer. And so this is the same here. There's no legal entitlement to join the private city. The operator can reject candidates at its discretion. This is important because people who openly declare that they probably want to destroy the society, like communists or Islamists establishing Sharia law, for example, why should you let them in? I mean, this is mad, right? So this is the same applies to known criminals, right? And this is exactly how Monaco is taking care of that. If you don't have a control on that, you cannot guarantee security. So no borders is a nice idea, but in practice it's not going to work. The operator can only guarantee security if he or she can control who is coming, this is prevention, and is entitled to throw out disruptors. And if you don't control your borders, they would just get back in again. 10th, each resident may terminate the contract at any time and leave the free private cities, but the operator may cancel only for cause, as for breach of the basic rules. Why is this so? Because if you come, you probably make some investments, you say, okay, I'm building a house or starting a business, then it would be not really attractive if I could cancel the contract any time. And that's okay, right? Unless you breach the contract because you're becoming criminal, for example. And this is also known already in the long-time life insurance, right? For 12 years. So they cannot cancel the contract, but you can go out every day. Yeah, how would such a city work in practice? Well, there would be private entrepreneurs which cover everything that is in demand, from hospitals, schools, and kindergartens to garbage disposal. The residents insure against all eventualities of life privately or create self-help groups, whether for illness, old age, death, or accidents. Skyscrapers, ports, airports, and shopping centers are created and run by investors. There's free trade, and anyone can import and export duty-free whatever he wants. Anyone can introduce new products and services without permission or license and pay them in any desired currency. Of course, all activity ends where the rights of others are infringed, and other than that, the proper corrective is competition and demand. Accordingly, there's also no need for parliaments. Rather, such representative bodies are a constant danger to liberty, since special interest groups inevitably hijack and mutate them into self-service stores for the political class. So there will be no political participation. Why is this so? Isn't this a big problem of this concept? Well, remember, the service that the operator is basically providing is relatively small. It's basically security. And other than that, you can do whatever you want. That means self-determination instead of participation. That is the big difference. And again, if you recall a cruise ship, I mean, you're totally in the hands of the captain. So what is the first thing you do? You go on board of a cruise ship. You say, Captain, I want to be elected in the passengers' council. No, you don't do that because it doesn't interest you. You say, if service is right, I stay on board and I come back next year or next month or whatever. And the same in a hotel or in a holiday resort like Disneyland. You are not interested, or in a supermarket, you're going to buy your daily food. One could argue, well, food and for my daily life is so important, I want to have a say what the supermarket offers as a product. So I want to be elected in the customers' council. Now you don't do that. Because you say, okay, if the service is not right, if the products are not good in the supermarket, I'll buy somewhere else. And basically, I think this is the future because, as we have heard today correctly, the power of the individual is ever increasing. I mean, I can fly from, and you can fly from Zurich, from Geneva, or from Georgia to Belgrade for a really small amount of money. I mean, when I was your age, that would have been €1,000 minimum, a flight within Europe, continental Europe. And so we are getting all more mobile, and that means also that if I'm providing bad services, you will leave quickly and easily. And that is exactly why in Monaco, where we have a prince who officially has a big power, right, is not introducing laws that would drive me away, because we would just move away, all of us. And he knows that. So competition is the limiting factor. It's not a constitution, it's not a referendum, it's not separation of powers, it's competition. If you do not serve your customers well, they will leave. So how, now you might have asked the question, well, sounds interesting, sounds good, but I mean, that is a fantasy. How do we do that? How do we make it happen? Well, of course, we need some territorial sovereignty. Don't mix up with land ownership. It's of no use to buy a Greek island if you are still subject to the Greek laws. Right? That doesn't help you. So you would have to go to Greece and say, look, do you grant us the right to establish a free private city on the island? And Greece would probably say, not now, but maybe the next government, yes, let's give it a try. But it's necessary that we have some international agreements and against proliferation of nuclear weapons and whatever. And say, okay, that's fine, let's negotiate about that. So we probably wouldn't get full autonomy, but it's not necessary, but it needs to have, we need to have the right to regulate our own affairs. For example, establishing a legal framework like British common law on a Greek island. And why should countries like Greece do it? Well, of course, because they see advantages. If you look at city-states like Singapore, Hong Kong, or Monaco, there's a big belt of wealth around the states, and there are people living there, and they're all paying taxes to the mother state. In Monaco, for example, are living 35 or 37,000 people, and more than 50,000 are working there. So there's a big commuting in and out in the morning and the evening, and they all pay taxes to France or Italy. And the communities nearby are also very wealthy, right? Look at what you have in Hong Kong, it's Shenzhen, you have on the Chinese side, and also on the Malaysian side, on Singapore is a very wealthy part of the country. And that's probably also the reason why China didn't grab Hong Kong completely, but they let it as it is. They have even their own currency and an own system, you probably know that. But they could have, from a power perspective, they could have just invaded it and take it, and no other country would wage a war for that. So I think if such structures are formed in a previously underdeveloped or unpopulated area, this is a good deal for the mother country. It's a win-win situation. And negotiating with the government to surrender partial sovereignty is certainly no easy task. But in my view, it's more promising than attempts to change the system from within. Again, I've tried it, and I think it's too hard. I try something else new. That's basically the underlying idea, right? You never change things by fighting existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And that's what I want to do. And free private cities are much more than just a nice idea. They have the potential to overcome existing systems in the sense of creative destruction. Once different private cities are spread worldwide, they will set the existing state under considerable pressure to change their system towards more freedom. Otherwise, they lose their performers. And that is precisely the positive effect of competition, which has been lacking in the state market to date. It is also conceivable that over time, specialized private cities form that address specific religious, ethnic, or ideological groups. They would develop own rules different from my basic rules. Everything is possible provided the voluntary nature of participation is given. We have no right to judge how our fellows want to make their living together. And even your Marxist professors and the socialists, they could finally prove to the world that socialism done properly does really work. But this time, one thing is different. We don't have to be part of that, right? It's voluntary participation. And then we will see what the outcome is. And that also applies to all other models. If you think you have the ideal anarcho-capitalist model of living together, fine, present it to the market. We will see. If you are not doing that and instead saying, well, it only works if the people with money and the performers are there and people are too stupid to understand my genius, You're not much different from the communists, right? That's exactly what they said in my country. They said, well, people didn't, when the GDR collapsed, East Germany, they said, well, people were too greedy, too selfish to understand the beauty of socialism. Well, that's not your problem. Let the people decide. So I believe that the creation of private cities or similar autonomous region is ultimately unstoppable. People of all social and economic groups will not forever agree to be looted, bullied, and patronized by the political class without ever having a meaningful choice. Free private cities are a peaceful, voluntary alternative that can occur without revolution and violence, and no need to convince the majority or win an election. So please check out our website and newsletter if you're interested. There are other groups working on similar projects. I'm flying to Honduras on Sunday, tomorrow. They have changed the law of their country to make something, it's not completely private, but it's a public-private partnership, to make something possible. The seasteading guys are negotiating in French Polynesia. There's one guy in Myanmar, in the autonomous state of the Karen, who tries to establish a private city. And there are other projects in the world that are following this path. And I'm in the lucky situation that I was successful enough in the past so that I don't have to work for make a living in the rest of my life. So I have dedicated myself, I'm 49 years old, to make this happen. And so far, my guess, we will see the first private city within the next 5 to 10 years. I'm working on it and I hope to see you there. Thank you very much.